But I look really beautiful these days, though.
Yep. Since in a pregnancy go. Oh wow, big fan.
Turned and I saw pregnant. Oh my god. Everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time stopping by, my name is Peace Omorugeva and I'm based in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. Okay, so today we're doing a bit of a story time. So we're talking about how I found out that I was pregnant. A few hours ago, I was sitting on my couch and I was just thinking about how, like when I found out and how I felt. And yeah, so if that's something if you want to find out the tea about that, if you want to find out more um, about that, please do keep watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you're pregnant, if you're expecting, or if you already delivered. Tell me how you found out you were pregnant, and who was the first person you shared your news with. Of course, the first person I shared the news with was, of course, my husband. And before we go into the story, I think I should just say here that okay, let me come closer a bit. I think I should actually just say here that I found out at work. So it's not your regular or your conventional video of how, oh my gosh, what fell? Ugh. So it's not your regular conventional video. Okay, I'm trying to be comfortable to share more about this story. Okay, so I want to go into my Google Photos because I think it will just help. It will help me to see. It will help me to see like pictures of that day. So I found out I was pregnant on the 22nd of January. It was a Monday. But those videos you watch where they're like, yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to before January 22, 2024. So before then, I'm going to try to look at the camera and stop looking away. So a little story time, a little backstory. Okay. I feel like for me to actually share this video, sorry, am I okay? Oh, this just shows I'm uncomfortable. I think maybe because it's like a personal story. I don't know. I think that's why I'm a bit uncomfortable. But it's something I would love to share with you guys. I would also my friends who watch this channel who I've not told how I found out about my pregnancy. So, okay. So my husband had arrived Canada in November 2023. But before he arrived Canada, a lot of things had happened with like my health. I had been in the ER like so many times in that period. So I was in a long distance marriage. So my husband and we met in 2016 December. And then we didn't start dating until 2018, April 2018. And so we got married in 2022, in September 2022. And so after we got married in September 2022, then I had to come back to Canada. So I left October 2022 to come back to Canada. And, that's when our long distance marriage started. And I was in Canada, and then I went back I think that was end of April, came back in May of 2023. So at that time, we didn't know how, we didn't know how or what was going to happen. We didn't know if, I was going to move back to Nigeria or if he was going to come here. But then sometime in 2023, he decided to file for his papers. Cut the long story short, in November 2023, my husband was in Canada. Like he arrived in Canada, he landed Canada. He moved to Canada. But before he arrived, the Lord had been taking me through a journey and which it's something that I would be sharing with, sharing with you shortly. But the Lord had been taking me through a journey of um, learning about pregnancy, learning about fertility, learning about miscarriage, and just teaching me, giving me His word concerning those aspects of my life. I remember there was a time that I had this. It was like a fear of miscarriage, and I just remember like I had not even said it out loud, to anyone or to the Lord in prayer. And I remember the Lord just giving me scriptures um, for that, and telling me that this is not my plan, and just assuring me that I wouldn't go through that and all of that, all of that, all of that. So before my husband arrived in November, I had gone through that journey of like praying and believing God for a baby and trusting God, and like there were times where in the middle of the night I would wake up, but I wouldn't wake up, like I wouldn't sleep. Like maybe I would wake up at like maybe 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Or maybe I would go out and come back, but at midnight I would pray, I would dance. Sometimes I would put like my pillow under my tummy and like I would dance, and just like act like I'm carrying my miracle baby, like my baby. And my husband wasn't here then, of course. Um, and yeah, I was telling my husband recently, like, wow, look at me. I'm in my third trimester right now. And um, like I remember those times, like the day I clocked 28 weeks. Yeah, the day I clocked 28 weeks, that day I cried, I praised, I danced. Like, even though I was feeling pain, I was like, nah, I'm gonna dance, because I danced. And I was just remembering times when I would pray for this, times when I would, put a pillow under my belly and um pray about conceiving, pray that, I won't struggle to carry my miracle baby. If there was one thing that I always pray to God about, there's one thing that I, used to always pray about, was that I don't, I'm not saying there's anything, this was me personally. Um, there was one thing this was me personally. Um, but I used to always, talk to the Lord that I know my life is ministry. Like I know that I'm called into ministry, and there are just so many things to use my faith for. And yes, I'm going to use my faith to, um, carry my child and all of that. But I don't really want that situation where I would start waiting for a long time to carry a child. Like I don't want to go through that pain. And so it was just like a prayer in my heart. Like I don't want to go through that. And so when my husband arrived in November, in my head I was like, well, I'm past that. When you calculate when you can start calculating with your mind and you start saying to yourself, well, I'm past that fertile window, so to say. And then in December, I traveled, and when I traveled in December, I traveled to Ottawa in December. And I just remember that when I traveled on the airplane, like I started having these pregnancy symptoms. And before then, I'd been watching a lot of videos on YouTube about like how people found out they were pregnant. And the 14-DPO thing, 14-DPO, 13-DPO, and checking, and all of that. And it was, those videos are really lovely. At some point, though, I started to find them overwhelming. Like the pain of, I don't know, I just started to find them overwhelming, and I didn't want to, yeah, I was just trying to be careful. Anyways, no, not careful. Let me explain what I mean. I found them overwhelming because I think I was watching too many of them, and it was just like, if you have to go through this every month, that would be heartbreaking. And I didn't want to be in that position. So it made me a bit uncomfortable, well, a lot, very uncomfortable at some point. So then I traveled in December, and I was already having like those pregnancy symptoms. Like when I was on the flight, I was telling my friend too that when I was on the flight, I could literally smell the detergent that the people close to me used to wash their clothes. And I was feeling so nauseous. I was feeling like really nauseous. And I'm usually not like to the point where I wanted to throw up. But then I'm usually not like, I was retching, and I'm usually not like, I mean, like, you have those symptoms before your period and stuff, but I'm usually not it doesn't really get to that extent for me. Like I could feel nauseous, but not to the extent where like I'm not to that extent. It was just like really concerning. And then yeah, so I noticed that in December. So I felt like, huh, maybe I'm pregnant, maybe. And then and on December, wait, let me look for the date. So this was Thursday, December 21st. So I'm looking through my Google Photos, and it was Thursday, December 21st. And I remember that day, I woke up that morning, I was at my friend's place in Ottawa, and I was like just fellowshipping, and the Lord told me, the baby you're carrying, He was giving me words about the baby that I was carrying. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm pregnant, but I didn't want to share with anybody. I wrote it down, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm pregnant, maybe. So I left Ottawa, I came back to Regina, and so I left Ottawa and I came back to Regina, and I got to Regina, and then a few days later my period started, and I went into a state of panic. And I could, that experience made me, and it was just like 1 month, but that experience made me understand, and I mean, not fully, but it gave me an idea of how people feel when they've been trying for so long and then their period keeps coming. Especially people who have like painful periods and like periods that are not even friendly. Even if their period is friendly, like it's like I don't know, it's painful. Like it's like heartbreak. But I went into a state of panic, and I did that because some things that had been said to me as it relates to fertility and all, and it just made me feel like, oh my, like in that, it was a state of panic, and it was like I had a million thoughts at the same time, and the million thoughts were thoughts coming from, oh, what this person has said, what that person has said about fertility as it concerns me, and just thoughts of, oh my gosh, doesn't mean that what they've said is true, and blah 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 blah, like all those thoughts rushed into my mind, and I went into a state of panic. Like I couldn't breathe. I was crying, I couldn't breathe. And my husband was just there wondering, like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. Anyways, and so then I got over that. And then my husband and I decided to pray intentionally about, having a baby. We decided to pray together about having a baby. But then I had prayed the previous year and I'd received all these words from God. So then those were the things that I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where you're trusting God for something, and you're looking at God's word and all of that, and maybe you're trusting God for something that is in the future. And when you finally get into that situation, when you finally get to that point, it's like the only thing you can stand on, the only thing you can remember to pray with, the only thing you can start to think about, it's hard to explain it, but the only thing you can start to you know um the only word you can stand on would be the words that you've gotten from before you got into that situation. So yes, what I mean. I had been praying and trusting God for a baby before my husband came. And so when that happened, when we started praying together, when he finally came, and when we started praying together, the words, my faith and everything were already, whew, how do I explain this? My faith was already built at that time. So I had to just go back and remember those things. And it was not a thing of me trying to now believe again, but I had to. And those words just sparked a confidence in my heart and a reliance on God. Like, okay, this is going to, work. This is going to be, But then we started praying about it every day. And then I felt like, okay, I'm just going to give it some months. Like, I'm not going to put any pressure on myself. A lot of people just say that you found out you're pregnant, and you're surprised. What were you expecting when you've been, I don't think you're allowed to say that word on YouTube, but you've been having da 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 da, and you're not using any contraceptive or birth control or whatever. What do you expect? But then it's like when you finally, and I think that maybe those people, they haven't really, I don't know, I think it's a bit naive to say that, because it's when you finally get into um it's when you've not been in that situation where it's like it's not just about that you're having, da 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 da, and you're not using contraceptive or whatever. It's much more beyond that. It's when you've gone through that journey. That's why people say, "Oh, we're trying for a baby," and it's like, "Oh, trying for a baby isn't it just supposed to happen one time?" Um, but it's when you've gone through that journey, you understand that, yeah, like that journey to conception, yeah, like I said, that journey to conception, it can be a journey, to conception. Anyway, so I told myself I wasn't going to, rush or anything. I'm just gonna give it some months. Maybe it'll happen in February. And I was just thinking like, oh, that'll be nice finding out in February, like Valentine and yada 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 yada. And I remember that the time I was thinking about this, when I had this thought, I was in the shower, and I think at that point I was already pregnant. So this video is getting really long. So then so this happened in December, right? And so in December, my husband and I, we had like an amazing time. I was off work for 1 week, and so it was our first Christmas together, first New Year's Eve. And so it was just like a beautiful time, like an amazing time together. Um, it was lovely. It was like my absolute best Christmas, and so then that passed, and then January started, and then I started to like, okay, you know what? While I'm waiting for this to happen, I'm going to, I had all these goals, like I'm going to, advance in my career, and these are the things I'm going to do, and yada 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 yada. And I remember when I was telling my friend about this in January. At that time, I was already pregnant, and I didn't know. So I remember in January, I'm just going through my Google Photos just to remember. So I remember in January, like things were going pretty good. Um, things were going pretty good. I'm just looking at these pictures, and it's just reminding me of how far my husband and I we've come, and we've not even been together in the same location for up to a year. But I'm just like looking through and like, oh my gosh, we've come really far. So I'm gonna play a video of I think it was the first Sunday in January, and
Initially, don't start speeding. Wait first.
but I look really beautiful these days,
Yep. Since in a pregnancy goal. Oh, our baby has come.
Amen.
Our Joshua has come.
Yeah, but I look really beautiful.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You have this baby face.
And the funny thing is, you have a baby face too.
Yeah,
That means our
baby.
child will really look like a baby. So the next week, I was preaching in church. So I was preaching in church next week. This was January. I was preaching in church, and I felt like, lots of energy. I was praying. After I ministered, after that Sunday, I started to feel, I think it was like even till it was the next weekend that I started to feel tired. Just a little tired, a little tired. But then I had a lot of things to do at work. Like work was busy as well. So I was feeling a bit overwhelmed and stuff. And then I thought, okay, my period was coming again, and just all the cramping, feeling bloated. But then I started to notice that, I'll put my chat with my friend. as well of me just telling her all the symptoms that I was experiencing. We hosted a couple of people at our house, and I made them jollof rice. And then I was just like, I made them smoky jollof, and anyone who knows me knows how much I love jollof rice. So I made them jollof, and then when they left, I just found the jollof so disgusting. Like I was like, nah, I'm not eating that again. My husband was like, but this is nice. I'm like, yeah, no, I can't stand that jollof. And I was just like, this is really weird that I can't stand jollof. I think it was Friday night. I was like, no, I can't stand this jollof. And then on Saturday, I was sitting just right here, like on my couch, and I was sitting on my couch, and then I remember the dishwasher was running, and I could smell the detergent from the dishwasher. Like it was so strong, I could smell it. And I was just like, huh, this is weird. But I felt like, oh, this is just like, premenstrual symptoms, because I was already feeling like, I was already feeling like, I was like my period was coming soon. I was already feeling that way. So I was just like, yeah, that's probably why this is happening right now. And then that happened before the previous month too. So I was like, "Ah, this is new." Previous month too, I could smell like people's detergent, the detergent they used to wash their clothes. I could smell it. So I was like, this is new, and like, okay, this is how it's going now, whatever. Um, and then I noticed too that I couldn't sleep well at night. So I would wake up like it was giving me insomnia vibes. um, and so it was also weird, like it was also strange because it's winter. It was winter then, and so everywhere would be dark, right? So why can't I sleep? So I couldn't sleep. So then I told my friend about it on Sunday. Well, more like early hours of Monday morning, so maybe around 2 a.m. ish. Then I think the reason why I couldn't have thought that it was I was pregnant was because I was experiencing some pain, and it just felt like these are period cramps. And I never knew that, pain could be a sign of pregnancy or a symptom of pregnancy. Like I never knew that. I just felt like, well, you have to, like, maybe the first thing would be nausea, or yeah. And then I was like, yeah, if I'm not experiencing nausea, then it would just be that, a missed period. But then I was also spotting, so I was just like, yeah, like that's definitely not pregnancy. So like I didn't know that spotting pain could be a sign of pregnancy. I just felt like my period is coming. So I definitely didn't think that was it, and I didn't think it even made sense for me to, pull out a pregnancy test kit, which I did not even have at home. And I remember like when I would see the spot, when I would spot, because I think I was spotting on Saturday and Sunday. So I think that would have been January 20th and January 21st. So when I would see that, it would make me sad. Like I would feel sad and like, oh my gosh, this again. Um, yeah, I was just tired of seeing my period. Um, but like I didn't know at that point, but I was just trying to like, what, I'm not going to be sad or anything, or whatever. But then it wasn't coming. I'm like, if you're going to start, you might as well start. Like, what's all this hide and seek? And so I told my friend that morning, that early hours of Monday morning, because I was up at like 2, like before 3 a.m., which was like really odd. And on Sundays, we don't go to bed early. So it was just like really odd. Like, why am I up at this time? And I was just like, and I was still feeling pain, and I was just feeling weird. Like, I was not feeling like myself. I heard someone say one time that they thought they had COVID, but it was that they were pregnant. I'm like, but I just felt weird. And so the next morning, my friend was texting me. I will put the chat if I didn't already put it. Um, she was texting me and she was like, maybe you just try it. And I had already told my husband, I complained to my husband. But he was saying later that he didn't want to suggest I take a pregnancy test, but he knew I was pregnant, and he didn't want to do that just because of, like, don't get your hopes up. Not like don't get your hopes up, but he just didn't want me to go through that pain if that wasn't the case. And so my friend was just like, maybe take a pregnancy test. What if you are? But I'm like, I don't want anything telling me that I'm not, even if I'm not. Do you understand? And so I was like, okay. So I texted my husband, like, okay, what do you think we should do? Like, what do you suggest? My husband was like, well, if he was in my shoes, he would just like take a pregnancy test now. And yeah, that's what he would do. And the app on my phone, so Flow, the Flow app on my phone was already threatening me at that point and saying, your period is 2 days late, time for a pregnancy test. It was already threatening me and saying, oh, you're pregnant, maybe not. If you're pregnant, your due date will be September, blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to take a pregnancy test, clearly it's more than 14 DPO. And so the pregnancy test would definitely be positive if I was pregnant. Like, it would already be positive at this time. Um, and but then I was like, okay, if I'm even going to take a pregnancy test, I have to use like the 6 days early one. So I texted my husband. I was like, you know what, just go grab the pregnancy test. But I felt so impatient. Like, I felt like I couldn't wait to like get home before I took it. So my husband went to the store and he bought me the pregnancy test. I specifically wanted the one that had words, pregnant, not pregnant, just because I didn't want to bother myself with those 2 lines, 1 line, whatever saga. But then again, when I think about it, like, if I wasn't pregnant and I saw the not pregnant, that would have really hurt me. But yeah, so my husband drove to my work. It was lunchtime. He drove to my work, and he was just like, before I took the test, he was just like, whatever happens, just trying to encourage me, like, don't feel sad if nothing. Um, yeah. So then I took the test from him. I went back to my office. I was just in a hurry. I went back to my office. I grabbed like a disposable cup, like a not a used one, like a disposable cup from our kitchenette. And then I didn't use the bathroom on our floor. I actually went downstairs because I felt like I just wanted some privacy. And in that the bathroom downstairs it's not really, people don't really use that bathroom. So I went into the bigger stall and I took the test kit, the cup, and everything. And I went there. It was just me. I went to the bigger stall. But when I was using the stairs to go downstairs to that bathroom, I was just thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like, it was more of thoughts of, oh my gosh, like, is that day going to come when I'm going to like see that I'm pregnant? Not out of doubt or out of like sadness or anything. It's just like a thought of, oh my gosh, like, that is really going to happen. And just thought of like, oh my gosh, that is going to change my life. Um, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, when will that happen? And I just had these thoughts in my head as I was going downstairs, and I'm like, oh my God, God help me. My baby kicked me. Hi, baby. Um, so I just had these thoughts in my head where I was like, oh my gosh, that is really going to happen. When is it going to happen? How would like, I just had this thoughts, and then I prayed to God. I was like, God, please, like, if this is, negative, please help me not to be sad. Help me to be encouraged. Like, let this not dampen my faith or anything. So I prayed, and then I went to the bathroom. I'd read the test instructions upstairs, but I went downstairs again. I read it. I was so nervous. My husband had driven off, so I was alone. So I peed in the cup, and then I brought out the test. I was so careful with it. I'm like, I'm not gonna make any mistake. And so then I dipped it in, and I just let it sit. I wish I took a video, but I didn't have my phone that day, so I didn't make a video. I really wish I made a video, but I'm telling you the story. So I put it there, and for some reason, that test was taking a really long time to load. So I put it down and whew, okay. So I put it down and I turned away and then I would turn back and it was still loading. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started to think to myself, like, okay, yeah, it means I'm not pregnant. Like if it's taking this long to load, then that means it's negative, because if it's positive, then it would have just loaded quickly because it's positive. So it was taking a long time, and then I turned and I saw pregnant. Oh my god. My face was like, and the funny thing, when I saw pregnant, I started to think to myself, was someone here with me? Did I use someone else's pee? How am I sure that was my pee? How am I sure I really peed into the cup? What if someone else peed into the cup? As crazy as it sounds, those were my thoughts. Like, what if it's not my pee? Like, what if this is not mine? I was just like, and then right there, I knelt on the floor. I knelt down on the bathroom floor and I just lifted my hands and I was like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. I was just thanking God. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm pregnant? It was just like, I'll show the pictures because I took pictures with my work laptop. I was like, I am pregnant. I was in shock. I was in shock. I don't remember if I cried, because I cry about a lot of things, but yeah, no, I don't remember if I cried, but I was in shock. And then I texted my husband, oh my gosh, I have to look for that chat and send to you. My husband was happy. Ooh. There's some things that my baby does that I'm not sure what she's doing in there. Like there's sometimes she moves and it's like very, it's like a lot of pressure. Sometimes she moves and like, it's okay, but sometimes it's like pressure. Anyways, he was happy and then he drove back and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm pregnant. What do I do next?
How do you feel, baby?
I feel like a prophet.
Why do you feel like a prophet?
Because I knew you were pregnant. I didn't want to raise your hope.
You knew I was pregnant when?
You know, I've already been saying it now. Are you sure you're not pregnant? I was well, I did not know exactly. I was contemplating either February or March. To fall on February or March. Now it will be like September.
Yeah.
Your birthday. Go fall for your birthday.
So our anniversary and
Not true.
Anniversary, my birthday and my baby's birthday is
2
September.
years. The September will make it 2 years now.
Flo said if I'm pregnant that my due date will be September 28th.
Over Sabi. You don't calculate them for you.
You don't tell me since if you are pregnant today will be different.
And funny thing is, I had not even started taking prenatal vitamins. I was planning that I would start that month. Yeah, but I hadn't started, which you're supposed to start like 3 months before you conceive, but I hadn't started. So I was just like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? Like, but yeah, that's how I found out that I was pregnant. And so that day we went home and then I made like this amazing spaghetti. We had like, I think it was beef. I don't know if there was chicken, but it was hot dog, like sausages in it, and I think it was plantain. And we bought a bottle of wine. Well, I think we had wine at home that someone had brought for us, and yeah, that's how I found out that I was pregnant. Next video, I would share more on my first trimester experience, sleeping on ice, bleeding, first trimester, second trimester, and I'll share more on that in my next video. If you watch this video up until this point, I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment. Let me know if you're pregnant, if you're trying for a baby, if you already delivered, if you have like many kids, you don't want to keep trying for any more babies. Just let me know in the comment section. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.